Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Historical Humans Reacts. And today we are looking at what could be the oldest pyramid in the world.
I've heard this one before. The horrible attempt at reverb there aside, which hopefully won't be coming out in the recording, but we all know is. Yes, there is a hill in Indonesia, which is in fact been revealed to really be a pyramid that's just become completely overgrown.
It's ironic how often that happens, Pyramids and hills over time, they kind of just start blending together and looking the same.
I mean, like in places like this where the jungle grows back in less than 10 years.
But
As
Aaron,
soon as you stop clearing it.
a lot of the Mayan pyramids were covered over and actually were just hills until they started digging into them and were like, hey, there's a lot of stones here that are pretty accurately placed.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to refer to.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this one here, it's not Mayan. It's on the island of West Java, out in Indonesia.
Java the Hutt.
Yep. Well, I was gonna think more JavaScript or Java as 50 slang for coffee, but let's go for Java the Hutt here.
The coffee's slurping.
So many, yep. So many different ways to go about it. We're going for that one. Okay.
But this hill was a sacred place, which is called Punden Berundak, which means step pyramid because of the terraces and how they go towards the top, which it's kind of crazy. And you hear a lot of conspiracy theorists talking about how pyramids are all over the world. It's because when you boil it down and you look at it, what's the easiest way to build up when you don't have super good technology, You build up. And you stack it.
Yeah, you stack it.
It's like the most natural way to build.
You look at a hill and you look at it and you see, it's pretty wide at the base and it's pretty narrow at the top.
You can do that. I want to live up high.
But I want to be
building after it.
But I want it to be made by people. I want it to be my own.
Oh no! Thus was the development of the civil engineer.
Yeah. Bane of our existence, civil engineering.
Then land development.
One of the fun things about this, what makes it so exciting, is not just that we found a new monumental-sized building, but also that we've managed to perform some initial radiocarbon dating, which shows that the construction period for it was during the last glacial period, which means that at minimum, this thing was being built 16,000 years ago.
At the last glacial maximum. But they have this dating at 27,000 years old, which is
that is the range, 16 to 27K.
That predates the Egyptian pyramids by pretty much 22,000 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it predates the Egyptian pyramids. It predates the Stonehenge in England. It even predates an old friend of ours, Göbekli Tepe.
Oh, no.
Which is only 11,000 years old.
God, it's like a child comparatively.
How are they dating this?
Radiocarbon. It's where you take the carbon-14 out of...
Hold on.
But what are they dating with? Something clearly within the pyramid.
Yeah, like what's the surrounding, what's the surrounding artifacts for it?
Let me see here.
And also, I think it's a little bit of a misnomer because the majority of the structure wasn't built 25,000 years ago, but just the central part, and it continued to be built again from 79 to 6100 BCE, and continued even further as recently as 2000 to 1100 BCE. So this is a site where they clearly would come back and keep adding to and building upon, so it wasn't a one and done.
So it was a continuously inhabited site.
Or at least a revisited site.
Yeah.
Gunung Padang here. It's built actually out of a volcano that is dormant. It's actually a dormant volcano they built on top of.
That's badass. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
badass.
It's built out of a dormant volcano. I'm not sure which material exactly they have. I assume that there is wood terracing involved, just given some of the images I'm seeing. Uh, do 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 do.
Even stuff I I hate to be this way. I really do, but I have to be the skeptic of the group here. Part of me is slightly hesitant. One, because the date range that you're giving, the 16,000 to 22,000, that seems like a relevant age range in terms of carbon 14. However, when you start talking more than 10,000 years ago, radiocarbon dating is a little less accurate. The delta range between, or I don't think it's delta range, but I think the standard deviations at that point become so large that the year gap could be thousands of years.
I mean, they're
Well,
also talking predating
that's why we have
agriculture.
that's why we have an 11,000 year gap in this, is probably because the
It's a
standard
couple of standard.
deviations of like, like 99% accuracy is 5,000 years at this point.
Yeah,
So like we don't know when exactly it was built, but it was under construction, you know, by probably no sooner than 27,000 years ago and no later than 16,000
Yeah.
years ago. Which is why we have this big range. It's the last glacial period. It's not that the carbon dating is inaccurate, it's that the carbon dating can't give us an exact date. It can just give us a range of acceptable values.
Yeah, they're like to put this like into perspective. Agriculture roughly is dated when we really start seeing real like proper agriculture is about 12,000 to 10,000 BCE, and this thing is saying people were doing this as far back potentially between 27K and 16K. Yeah, that's there's a reason for skepticism.
And the other thing that people should be very skeptical about with articles like this is, even though we are kind of leaning into the clickbaity title of it by making a video on this, it really should highlight, and that's kind of the reason we chose it, is because you should highlight the fact that a lot of times these news articles really dramatize, and they try to grab your attention, and they try to reach for these extrinsic things, which the thing about the field is we're always trying to find new information, and there could be groundbreaking discoveries that could shatter the field. But a lot of times stuff like this that claim to be the oldest are drummed up a bit.
It's Alexander's tomb. Everything is Alexander's tomb until it isn't.
That was Cleopatra.
However, I do think I found something. I found supplementary information, just not in this article, that is talking about what they are carbon dating, because that was a big question for us. So what they are doing is they are taking core drill samples of the site, and they are carbon dating biological material found within it. So a lot of let's see, a lot of just dead vegetation that got buried.
That makes sense. I would just be curious to see what the soil profiles look like. Also, because they talk about how it gets buried upon and buried upon. So I wonder where the fill dirt is, and
if we could find like the source that they use for this article, I feel like there might I would imagine that they were talking about the carbon dating, and like that standard deviation started to come up, saying like, and like in context, it's like, yeah, because of the limits of carbon dating, it could be anywhere between 27K and 16K. And taken out of context, they were like, "Oh, so that means it could easily be." And it's like, no, that's not how that works.
Yeah, it's one of the things, like we're dating the dirt on top of it, we're dating the dirt under it, and we're like, that's the gap.
I mean, I've handled like, I've seen like soil profiles, and if they were using like like charcoal bits, I can see it better, but
it is unfortunate. Like, I think most of this is andesite and basalt type stones. So basically it's built mostly out of the volcanic rock that's there, which unfortunately does not carbon date directly.
And wouldn't any carbon from that dormant volcano also
You
contaminate it?
You could technically, yes, Aaron, that is a thing. And technically you could date the obsidian if there was any evidence of obsidian quarrying nearby or in that area. You can actually do tests to see when the obsidian was cut.
Yeah, I would definitely be more interested in like the surrounding data.
Or like the actual publication of the data, I'm sure answers a lot of our questions. These tend to be synthesized and then sensationalized.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good point for us to wrap up here. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like down below, a comment, let us know what you want to see. And maybe we'll talk about it. But we will see you in the next video.